Hello everybody and welcome back. Got another build for you today, and this one is pretty cool. I have some cool materials including this 80s camel carbon fiber, which I was excited to use, and then some Vegas forged Stardust damascus. So I tried to show a few more things this time, including some Fusion 360 modeling. I already had these built up, but I wanted to show you a little bit of some of the adjustments I had to make. So first it starts with just cutting out the basic shapes of the scales, which is always fun, especially when that top of it's black and you kind of get to see the carbon fiber pattern reveal. So the next thing is shaping them in general, and then these ones I wanted to do my sunburst pattern on. I thought it would really make the colors be pretty wild, which it was cool. It's kind of hard to see in that picture, but it wasn't quite how I liked it. It kind of just made it so busy that you kind of lost the pattern. So later you'll see I changed my mind a little bit on that. But one of the first things you got to do, like I say, is get everything just super flat and straight. So that's what we're doing with the blade there. And then always double checking my bits, because if you drill through your stuff with the wrong bit, it really sucks, and don't ask me how I know. So just the usual, we spotted all the holes, we're drilling out the through holes, chamfering them all, and then drilling the smaller holes that we're going to thread. So right here we got to chamfer it for the screw head to fit all the way down in. So you want to get that at just the right depth, that it's not too far, but far enough that it'll still fit once everything's flat. Threaded a few holes, and then here I am putting the two halves of the liners together. So I do those holes first, and then once I can put the two halves together, then is when I drill the pivot hole, and that just ensures that everything is perfectly square and straight after it's all drilled together. So reaming it out, you drill the undersides, and then we ream it to the proper size, chamfer it. And now I'm using the counter bore. Almost couldn't think of it, but we're just making the pockets fit the bearings in. So we'll do that on all the liners you can see, as well as the blade. This time I'm showing you a little bit more about the making of the back spacer. So this is zirconium, which is the same thing I used in my last build, but essentially it's obviously, I have a like master blank that I just use to trace on there. Otherwise you can use like a paper pattern, but it's easier to have something to trace, and then using a dull belt to try and get a little bit to shape. So right here you'll see me marking. I don't have holes drilled in that master pattern one, so I'm having to put the holes on this one, which is just a little bit of super glue, making sure I have it in the right spot, some activator. Then I'll glue that on and spot the holes through the liner. You obviously got to be careful because those holes are already threaded, so I can't mess up those threads, which is why I'm not going to drill all the way through. I'm just getting a nice spot there, and it just pops right off. So now I know where I'm going to drill through the rest of the way, because I drilled it while it was on. Next thing is you got to get the back spacer to size. So everything has to be the exact right size so that the liners are parallel. And you can see the carbide inserts on my face mill were totally trashed, so I just had to rotate them to fresh sides. But here you just measure down so you get the back spacer the correct size smaller than the blade, which accounts for essentially the washers the blade rides on. There's obviously a little bit of a space between the blade and the liners. Like I said before, I didn't quite like how the pattern turned out, so I milled it thick. Luckily I was kind of thinking I may do this, so I had them a little bit thick in the first place, so milling them down to smooth made them just the right size. But I'm doing this YouTube a little bit different. Last time I fret so much about like what I'm saying and when I'm saying it, and I couldn't get quite the right mix of music and talking, and finally I decided, screw it, I'm just gonna talk on this one and see how it goes. So who knows, maybe in the future I'll put some more music, I'll find the right balance, but this one's just gonna be me yammering. So if I haven't annoyed you so far, then hopefully you'll make it through to the end of this. But right now I'm just setting the stop pin. You'll see I had so this build is another thing you'll see, actually, so I better explain this, is I had these liners saved, so I'll set pieces aside for myself from time to time, thinking I'm going to make a build with them. And these liners were spotted and saved from kind of version 1.0, and the knife I've since I make little tweaks to them as I go, and this blade is milled out of version 2.0, so there's a few things that didn't line up, which you'll see kind of affects it. Not too bad, but it just ends up with its slightly altered shape. But here I spent all this time just chilling, monologuing, yammering about blade geometry, and audio is just terrible, but essentially you can see me using my file guide to mark the grind lines I'm about to use, and I'm just explaining how the angle of the bevel of the blade and how you transition up to the flat part or the ricasso is what affects that line I'm drawing right there. So if you want that to be a smooth transition like that, like a graded instead of like a sharp corner, you need to be able to transition your grind lines up smoothly, or the blade angle up towards the flat part or the ricasso. And if you can't make that smooth, then you're going to have a sharp corner, which is a hard thing to do until you've kind of learned. But grinding is pretty simple. It's hard to actually do, but I mean, there's not much to it as far as showing you guys, so I'm kind of just zipping through it. Here you have I'm holding the blade open against a stop pin, and I was marking the line I need to grind to for the lock bar. So another thing, I'm trying to not spend too much time on boring stuff, but it feels like I'm kind of cutting through too fast. So anyways, you can just see grind a little bit and then check, grind a little bit and check until it fits. And I almost forgot to mill the lock bar relief. So you have to make that part thinner or else it's too stiff to work with your thumb. So you mill it down, and then next we heat it up and bend it over so it snaps into place when the knife opens. Then we take and drill through the liner into the blade to create this hole in the blade and the hole in the liner, so that when you close the blade, the ball we're going to put in that liner lines up perfectly with that hole.
These little dots into that knife.
What are we going to use? What's this thing?
A smoother.
The smoosher. Smoosh. Smoosh it. After Grace helped me press the detent ball in, we need to mill the scale so that when the liner opens, there's a relief and it doesn't get bound up between the scale and the blade. So then we can go ahead and take these liners where we drilled the holes in them to hold them down to the fixture. We can drill those out and counterbore through all those cool layers so that we can put the pivot pin in. So it's always fun in this material, drilling through the different layers. But here I have a temporary pin in there, but I'm just profiling the sides, and you'll notice that with the profiling it changed the shape of the hand a little bit, and that was just from, like I said, using version 2.0 blade with 1.0 handle. So changed the shape a little bit, but nothing drastic, so I wasn't too worried about it. Just getting every surface and getting it nice and contoured. Here I'm thinning down the scales a little bit just so it feels better in the hand, which is kind of part of the handmade aspect of these knives. I do use some machines, but sometimes every single one, in fact, I kind of fine tune it to make it feel good in the hand. Right here I'm just scalloping the backspace or gearing it, which I want to do for one of my own knives because I think it's rad. But anyways, I wanted to keep this one short, so this is the first half of it, but stay tuned and subscribe if you don't mind. I'd really appreciate it. And shortly I will have the part 2 up.